Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we're ready to get started. Lesson learned. We know not to put that link out to anybody, but just the board. That was I think that may have been an accident that when it went out from the city. Okay. It is 4:03. Note taker, are you there?
I'm here.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. All right, it's 4:03. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The first thing that we're going to do today is we're going to do an approval of the minutes from the July 15th, 2020 meeting. Those were amended. Those were also sent in your packets. I believe it is on page 4 or 3 that there was a change that says that Richard asked that the data gathering be conducted. Raw data should be presented in a way that is more user-friendly. Rescues should report their activities with animals they pull to include if the animals are rehomed. This issue may warrant a committee or subcommittee. So we added that. That is on page 3. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the July 15th, 2020 meeting?
Yeah, I can make a motion to approve these minutes.
Richard, I need a second.
Second.
And Patrick is second. All those in favor, I guess we're just going to raise our hands so we're not all talking at once. Say aye. Excellent. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 18th, 2020 meeting. Those were also included in your packet.
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Say that again.
I move to accept the minutes.
Perfect. Teresa's a first. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Tijuana, second. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye. All those opposed? All right, unanimous. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we move to adding for public comment at the beginning of the meetings. I know that this is a little challenging since we're online with everybody today, but we do have a chat available that is in YouTube on the City of Wichita page that people can enter anything in the chat. If you have any questions from the public, those questions can be rendered now. And we're about a 15-second delay. So we're gonna give them just a minute or two to see if there's any questions that come in through the chat.
Sorry.
Has the YouTube broadcast actually started? It looks like it just says it will begin in a few moments. And for
yes, it is on. I'm watching it in real time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just loaded it up too. She just asked for comments on there.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions at this time from members of the public. If I do see any come through, I'll wait till the appropriate time or I'll catch them at the end of the meeting today. We're going to skip staff reports at the beginning. Lieutenant Hungria has to attend a KHS meeting, but he should be back with us probably around the 4:30 mark and he will give his report then. We're going to start today with the City of Wichita Attorney and New Business, Jan Jarman, the update on the dangerous dog ordinance. You guys received that update in your packet. Jan, take it away.
Hello all, can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Let me, for those of you who don't know me, and I don't know, I'm Jan Jarman. I'm with the city in the law department. I was part of the group that created the dangerous dog ordinance several years ago. I don't know if you know this, but a group of citizens got together made a subcommittee of this board, got together, made some recommendations to create an ordinance or to improve our current ordinance. And thus the dangerous dog ordinance was improved and renovated. Now that several years have gone by, we've seen a few issues with it. And as often is the case, we need to probably tinker with the ordinance a little bit to fix some of the problems. There are two levels of problems. One issue needs to be corrected, in my opinion, whether people want to or not. We just have to. We had this ordinance challenged and it went to the Court of Appeals. I did oral argument in front of the Court of Appeals. They didn't really have to rule on these issues. Really, the issue came down to that we don't record the appeals in front of a judge, and the Court of Appeals says we need to record those. And we're going to do that. But in that same decision, the Court of Appeals had a few issues with our ordinance that need to be fixed. Really, they thought it's surrounded around due process issues. Right now, if your dog is deemed dangerous, Animal Services makes that determination without any input from anyone else. And my proposal is to change the ordinance to, if you have a dog who Animal Services is considering deeming dangerous, then the dog owner would have the opportunity to submit information, witness statements, anything in writing. It wouldn't be an in-person hearing, but any kind of statement they want to make. So Animal Services would consider that along with the information that their officers gathered. So that's one change that I think the Court of Appeals wants to see happen. Another change is the way the ordinance is written now. If you appeal that decision, it goes to a municipal court judge who conducts an administrative hearing. And really the ordinance says that all that judge is doing is determining whether the Animal Service opinion or decision was correct. And we're going to change that, and it will be a brand new hearing where they won't consider at all what Animal Services did. Instead, they'll have a brand new hearing with all new witnesses that it won't be in writing, it'll be allowed and it'll be recorded. And I think the Court of Appeals would prefer that route. The third thing we're going to do is just change some of the burden of proof. It's a little confusing. It's really preponderance of the evidence. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt because this isn't a criminal hearing. So we're going to tinker with that a little bit. That is the first set of changes that I am suggesting that really the Court of Appeals is going to demand eventually. So if we're going to use the dangerous dog ordinance, we need to make those changes, because if it is appealed again, we could have issues. There is another level of changes that we are recommending that are based on, first of all, I know we sent this out to the board and it gets around, which is fine, but then all of a sudden people think that we've contacted the rescues and we've made some kind of deal. I got to tell you, I'm the one who wrote this and I didn't contact anyone other than Animal Services, the judge, and to see kind of problems that they're seeing on the cases. And that's where these suggestions have come from. They are all 100% internal. It has nothing to do with anyone external. So after speaking with the judge and Animal Services, some of the changes we'd like to see to the ordinance that are not necessary for the Court of Appeals is a separate section. First of all, we think probably after we've lived with this ordinance a while, we think we've created too many levels. We have a potentially dangerous dog level 1, a dangerous dog level 2, and a dangerous dog level 3, and it's hard. Our suggestion is get rid of the potentially dangerous dog category completely. It's a good idea and we meant well, but it captures so many dogs that it is overwhelming. And it also, we believe, increases the number of dogs that have to be kept at the shelter while we're making these decisions. So the first suggestion is, since it doesn't take much to be a potentially dangerous dog, and if we really want to be protecting the citizenry, sorry, speak poorly, we're better off focusing on the dogs that are really more dangerous. So that's our first suggestion. Then we would move it to 2 levels. You'd have a level 1, and that's almost every dog. If you bite someone, if you bite another animal, you're going to be level 1. If you almost kill a person, or if you are so dangerous, you as a dog, if the dog is so dangerous that it could kill a person and shows propensity to seriously harm a person, it would be a level 2 and it would be euthanized. So that would be for the very worst of the worst. Every other dog would be deemed a level 1 under this proposed change. Now, right now, if you have a dog that is deemed dangerous, the ordinance tells you you have to do all of these things. One of the things you have to do is build a pen, and the pen has to be set into cement. Now, imagine if you have if you live in an apartment, and imagine if you have a small dog and you're out taking it for a walk and it bites someone. It is a dangerous dog. It bit someone. But forcing them to build a pen when they live in an apartment, you can't do that. The apartment's not going to let you do that. So the choice is either they have to move in the middle of their lease, or the dog has to be euthanized. Because the way the current ordinance reads, we can't give those dogs to a rescue if they're level 1, and we can't let you have your dog back if you don't build a pen. So probably we need more flexibility in what we do with animals we deem dangerous. If you have a very dangerous dog, you should still get a pen. If you have a dog that got in a fight with another dog when it's walking, maybe you don't need to have the pen that's buried into the cement into the ground. So the changes I'm proposing would allow animal services more flexibility in making orders. They would make an order of whether they need a pen or not, whether they need some sort of classes or not, whether they need to wear a muzzle or not. There would be many fewer mandatory items that you'd have to do. The only mandatory thing would be the sign, the license, and you'd have to have a microchip. Everything else would be at the discretion of the fact finder with the changes that I'm proposing. What else? So therefore, the biggest change probably that got everyone's attention that I didn't really realize was going to be so controversial is a level 1 dog can go to a rescue in the new system. It wouldn't always, and I need to probably write that in better, that it would be at the discretion of animal services. If it's a very dangerous dog, we're not going to let people rehome it. But for dogs that can be rehomed because sometimes they're biting because they're in a home with children and maybe they don't need to be with children. Maybe they're in a home with dogs and then other animals and they don't need to be in those homes. So if they can be rehomed successfully, then we would agree to release them to the rescues. We did put some consequences. If the rescues didn't do the proper paperwork, then there's a punishment system where they couldn't get animals out of the shelter for a certain number of days if they were giving out dogs that didn't have the proper paperwork. So that's how we would enforce that section. So generally, those are the changes that we are suggesting at this point.
So if I'm hearing you right, you want to sort of simultaneously make the dangerous dog levels kind of flatten out, but also have a lot more subjective leeway in what is done with the dangerous dogs that aren't the worst.
Right.
I guess I'm not sure how that helps to just be more subjective.
Well, it would allow the experts, animal services, to make decisions as to what's necessary to protect the citizens. And it would allow us not to paint every dog with such a broad brush of needing to be euthanized. I think our goal would be to reduce the euthanization rate if it's a dog that isn't going to endanger the public.
Isn't that just a different definition of what level 1 might mean?
No. Right now, if you have a level 1, which is a minor bite, I mean, level 1 is not a life-endangering injury. And if you don't live in a type of housing situation where you can build a pen, you can't have that dog, which means it will have to be euthanized because the ordinance also says we can't rehome it.
So, do you know how many dogs have been euthanized in the last year on dangerous and deemed dangerous dogs?
I don't.
Okay. So if I understand you right, and when you say the experts and you refer to animal services, exactly who's going to make those determinations?
Right now, I believe it'd be Lieutenant Hungria.
Okay.
Which there is oversight by Deputy Chief Pinkston right now.
Okay.
I think there's a new word that came into this, fact finder. Can you define fact finder for us?
The reason I use that broad term is once Animal Services makes the determination, and if it is appealed to the city judge, it's already currently written into the ordinance that the city judge can make new orders. And so therefore I use the word fact finder because it could be Animal Services, it could be a city judge, it could be a district court judge if it's appealed that far.
Okay, another question. You said the goal is to reduce euthanasia rates. To me, the goal should be to protect the public.
I think it does. And
I mean, if you have a bunch of dangerous dogs or dogs deemed dangerous, the euthanasia rate doesn't matter. To
well,
me,
I agree. And I think we support that. But it's probably more than just euthanasia. It is too difficult. You're asking too much of a department to have these multiple levels and to focus on these. And a lot of the focus, I think, goes on the potentially dangerous dog, which is sucking time from the more serious dogs that are a danger. But I also believe that there's no reason to euthanize a dog that is not a danger to the community.
Well, I think too that a dog that is gets to that point of having animal control come down, it's not going to be a little nip, right? I mean, it's going to be significant. The person has been bitten either has a resentment against the owner and wants to just get them in trouble, which would be determined in the course of investigation, or the bite was significant.
Not in my experience.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the case that went to the Court of Appeals. It was a teenage girl who was mowing her lawn, and it was a hunting dog next door, and he was a paying dog. He was a jumper, and they built a fence to the sky, and the dog also digs. And the mower upset the dog, and the dog was digging, and either with his toe got under the fence or his tooth, we're not sure which, and the girl got a tiny nick on her toe as she was mowing the lawn. It was a potentially dangerous, but that was the issue. So no, these bites aren't life endangering.
So again, I mean, the determination then should be made by a reasonable person during the course of investigation for that specific dog. I mean, ideally, every dog would get that kind of scrutiny on it, right? I like the simplification of the levels. I think that takes a lot of confusion out of it. But I'm uncomfortable with removing the requirements for a pen because someone lives in an apartment. If someone lives in an apartment and the determination can be made by the judge, you don't have to do that. You can do whatever.
The judge can't do that right now.
Well, that could be part of the amended dangerous dog ordinance. Instead of
why wouldn't you want Lieutenant Hungria to do that? Why would we need to take it all the way to court?
Well, Hungria could do it, but you're saying that you want to remove the requirement to build a pen that's set in cement. You want to remove that?
I want not to be mandatory. We would like it to be an option.
I see. Okay. I would also have to strike the idea of an electric fence, an invisible fence. I don't think that should be anywhere in this ordinance. They're just not sufficient for any dog that's riled up, and they don't protect the child who may wander onto a property where an invisible fence is. So those were my two biggest concerns.
Okay,
there.
I've heard that too. I didn't realize that about electric fences, so.
I do have one comment that came in. It came in actually through my email. And it says, just wondering if it might be more prudent to amend section 6.04045A2 to serious bodily harm versus minor injury. There's some more commentary on this. It's quite long. Jan, I'm just going to forward this to you. In another city, the definition that they use, which is not much of a high threshold as initially sounds, they use the stitches rule, and if it required stitches, then it qualified. If you're trying to capture a dog with a history of minor bites, I think you could do this differently, but that's the way it's written. It locks you into having to deem a Chihuahua that nipped a guy as dangerous. And then there's a definition of serious bodily harm that says means an injury characterized by severe bite wounds or severe ripping and tearing of muscle that would cause a reasonably prudent person or animal owner to seek treatment from a medical professional or veterinarian and would require hospitalization or clinic treatment without regard to whether the person actually sought medical treatment or veterinarian services. Then it says, secondly, this person could see getting some pushback on that 48-hour rule simply because the fact of holidays and weekends, we don't know if those apply. And then there are some owners that might see this as exclusionary. So Jen, I will forward this to you from the person that sent it, just so you have that. It is actually from a previous animal control director out of the area that is here now.
Okay, thanks. Actually, and that was sort of discussions we've had about making the threshold just generally higher. And I think there is some concern about that because the desire to protect the community. I think people are concerned that lowering the threshold or increasing the threshold so much to stitches, you're missing out on a lot of dangerous dogs that you could do something about before they get to that point. So there has been, I want that person to know that there has been a robust discussion about that very issue.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. I do have one comment from online that says, a PDD or DD that lives in an apartment cannot currently comply to the restrictions of that ordinance as it's currently written.
True.
I guess they're going to have to move.
Well, I would like to think that would happen. But I don't think that just saying, well, I guess they're going to have to move is going to be sufficient enough.
I mean, our concern is always the public. Of course, we don't want the public to get hurt. But at some point, we want to make sure that we are not penalizing lower income people who can't afford to just pick up and move. You have a dog that maybe had a very minor incident and we expect them to break their lease, maybe not be able to get a new apartment because they broke. At some point you have to consider that too.
So my question is, if it's a very minor incident, why is it being deemed dangerous?
Because our ordinance says that they are. And we also get a lot of criticism that if the ordinance says so, then you must do it, that there isn't a lot of room for discretion.
How many cases are you aware of that fall into that?
That we are deeming dangerous?
Yeah, where the current ordinance is affecting the people you're referring to. How many times has that happened in the last 6 months?
I have to say, I haven't dealt with Lieutenant Hungria. I dealt with the one before him because I did those appeals. I don't do these now. When I did them, several, many, multiple. I don't know about now.
This is Lieutenant Hungry. I think there was a couple of questions that came up from Mr. Atkins in regards to the euthanasia of dogs. For 2020, we had total of dangerous dogs euthanized was 83. Now, some of those could be a level 1 where the owner signed over the dog or could not have complied. That kind of, without looking at every single file, we just track it by the dangerous dogs that were euthanized, and that number is 83. I think the other question that came up just now was how many dogs we're actually dealing with. Where was it at?
About 130 and 150.
Yeah, it was around 130 potentially dangerous dogs that we deemed this year, and about 153 that were deemed as dangerous dogs. Does that answer? I think that was the questions you had, Patrick.
Yeah, was that for all of 2020?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Lieutenant, can you repeat that again? How many were euthanized because they were a dangerous dog?
83.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Richard, I think you've got something.
Well, yeah, this is, it's a very long document. There's a lot of nuance. I think we've gotten a little more clarity on that today. I think some of it is hopeful. Some of it is still questionable. I would like to make a motion that we table this and take up discussion again at our next meeting.
Second that.
I have I'm sorry, say that again. Who did the second?
I second, because I don't think we had enough time to really look over it and scrutinize it.
Okay.
We have other things going on too.
Yeah, I've read it a couple of times, but I need to actually just tear it apart and look
This
at
is
what we
Elaine.
have and what the changes are.
Sorry, Mike. This is Elaine. If we can, I'd like to amend Mike's motion, if it's not too late, that we table most of the discussion except for the parts needed to comply with the Court of Appeals. Is that, Jan, were there certain parts that you can separate out from the levels?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that I'll probably take that to the city council because those need to happen. And you can table the other part, I mean, honestly, as long as you want, because, I mean, I don't have it takes this board a long time to do things. So, and once I take one section, the city council probably ain't gonna be real interested in hearing the second section anytime real soon. So, but that's fine, I'll separate it. I'll talk with WPD because in the end, we want your opinion and we respect your opinion, but it's advisory to the WPD. So we will have to get together and talk and figure out what we'll take to the city council right now. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Can I ask a question? How come we only had a week to look at this?
Where are you? I don't know. I've been working on it sometime. That's just when I had my final version done.
Because that was my big concern. Sorry, I'll put my video on. I don't have a stabilizer, so I don't want to make you guys all drunk. The thing about it to me is we had less than a week to review it. We all have jobs. We all had other things going on in our lives. And just, I want to be able to review it and review it appropriately. And I think giving a board less than a week to address something like that, unless that board was our only job that we had, I think that's just unfair and inappropriate for us to fully assess it and make a decision.
Okay, I guess I was a little surprised it was this controversial, honestly, but okay.
What we say about everything.
Yeah, I think the problem is that many of us are not able to walk the streets in our communities. We've had 4 bites to postal carriers. We've had residents that are moving their mail out to the street. And so it's controversial because people's lives are being impacted in ways that aren't always really, resulting in stitches. So it would be good to take the low-hanging fruit away and do what you can with that. And then we will continue to review this and get feedback from our community members as well.
Okay.
What exactly is the protocol that WPD Animal Services uses that deems them this way? I mean, is there something that's written that we could review? I know before, the lieutenant before just kind of did it based off of his own discretion, but is there not some kind of protocol that is written in policy for them? Like for us to review, to look at? I mean, kind of get a better idea?
Vanessa, I just review and I look at all the cases and I use the city ordinance the way it's written, as it's written right now, to make decisions. There's no policy, there's no other thing that goes by. We just follow the letter of the law. And that law gives discretion in certain areas. And so it is possible that stuff that my predecessors have done may not match up exactly with what I currently do, but like I said, I try to follow what the city ordinance says, and that's how I make my determinations on these cases.
So my other question was, it'd been quite an issue within animal control, allowing some of these dogs who were deemed potentially dangerous to be adopted out. Is this, by redoing this whole ordinance, does that take that option away? Because I know some of the different rescues were pretty upset that they couldn't go and see these animals like they used to be able to have access to. So is this ordinance kind of put an end to that?
The ordinance proposal, as far as reviewing the dangerous dogs that are in our facility, the way this proposal is written, the potentially dangerous dogs, wouldn't be here in the facility at all. Those owners would be getting notices. So the only dogs that would be in the facility would be level 1s or level 2s. Since I've been here, every rescue's had the opportunity that wants to go and view the dogs in a restricted hallway. They send an email and we let them go back there. We have nothing to hide back there in the facility, and we encourage them to come through and take a look at anything we're doing while they're back there in the facility.
Well, Ms. Jarman, I'd like to point out 2 things. One, Wichita, as most cities its size, I think has a bigger issue with this, especially as you're referring to in some of the low-income neighborhoods. It impacts more people's lives than you may be aware of. So I have 2 problems with it. One, I recognize you're going to take it to the city and the city's going to make the determination. So obviously we'll have to go through our city council if we want to try to affect any change in that short period. But one is, I don't think any dog deemed dangerous should be adoptable by a rescue. And 2, I can admire trying to make it more efficient, more streamlined, but the protection of the public is far more important than the number of euthanized dogs. Euthanized dogs are just a sad part of reality in today's world. If you have to euthanize 200 dogs a year to stop kids and adults from being bit, and like Richard said, I've talked to many people, they don't feel comfortable, safe walking down the street with their own dog due to the number of dogs that are aggressive towards them when they have done it. So that's my concern.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I have been here 23 years and I prosecuted 17 of those 23, and I prosecuted my fair share of dog cases. And in fact, when I was part of writing this ordinance in the beginning, I'm the one who did all of the appeals in municipal court, and there were a lot. And some of these suggestions are coming from the judge who hears those, because he doesn't get a good picture because he only gets the appeals. And the appeals are the ones that are on the fringe. I get that. And that is what we're attempting to do, is to eliminate some of the fringe. So I think I do appreciate the big problem, because I was part of the original group and I was there with John Stevens when we talked about the bites. I get that. And I'm not suggesting that we don't deem dogs dangerous, and I'm not suggesting that we don't euthanize. I'm just suggesting that maybe we've painted it with too broad of a brush at this point. That's all.
So,
and if you all don't agree, then that's okay. I mean, that's all right, but.
So how do you make the public safer or make it better by allowing rescues to adopt dogs that have been deemed dangerous? Why is that even part of it then?
Because we have defined a bite as a minor nip or scratch. And if you think that those dogs should be put down for a minor nip or scratch, then okay. I mean, that's the decision you all can make. That's fine. I'm not a huge animal advocate either way. I'm just a regular person that had a dog I really liked. But when I read this ordinance, and when the public reads this ordinance and sees that a minor nip and scratch is something that you then have to build a pen for, that you put in cement, or you can't have the dog anymore, I get questions about it. I gotta be honest. People ask why. And so I attempted to fix that.
I have something to say real quick. Number one, for Patrick, I want to clarify what is being taken to council. Number one, what is being taken to council are the issues from the appellate court that need to be taken forward. That is something that we cannot now and or ever affect unless you want to start lobbying at this, through the appellate court. So those are the things that Jan will be taking forward as of right now. The other items are items for discussion. And I think what Jan was alluding to when she said that is, if she's going to take the appellate court decisions forward as soon as maybe next week or the week after, whenever, the chances of them wanting to talk to us about another animal services item that quickly after is going to be very slim, because they have a lot of items on their agenda. So that's why she's taking the appellate court version forward now. So Lieutenant Hungria.
Yeah, I think Patrick had some, he brought up some points about the dangerous dogs if they're adopted by rescues. I think Jan could probably help answer this one. I think that was in that proposal. It's stating that if the dog is rehomed in the city of Wichita, it has to comply with whatever the level 1 restrictions are. So the level 1 restrictions, if the owner decided to keep the dog, would have, say, has to have a fence and has to have a muzzle or whatever the restrictions might say. If the dog is rescued by a rescue group and they end up adopting it or rehoming it in the city of Wichita, it has to stay in compliance with what the level 1 restrictions were that were in place to the original owner. It'll follow the owner. So whether the rescue group works with the dog and rehomes it to somebody else or the owner keeps it, it's the same restrictions that have to be in place. It doesn't get to change because it's been rehomed. So as in regards to protecting the community should still be protected either way because the restrictions would still be the same. Now, if the dog is rehomed to Newton, well, our restrictions and our thoughts on a dangerous dog don't apply. But we would encourage them to obviously let that city know of those restrictions. Jan, is that about right?
Yeah.
Do we have any more comments from the board? We do have some public comment that I'll need to read.
We do have a motion and an amended motion that have not been dealt with. So Elaine's motion did not get a second, and she amended my motion. So
well, we can't go for a second until the first motion has been turned down.
No, that's wrong. If a motion is amended, the amended motion has to be dealt with first. and then the first one can be dealt with.
Right, but then we started talking about the first one. So we have to go back is what I'm saying. We have to go back we can't do number one until we finish the second one.
So then Elaine, I guess your motion, because it didn't get a second, died.
I didn't ask for a second yet.
Okay.
Is there a second to Elaine's motion to allow Ms. Jarman to go forward with the appellate court rulings on the amended ordinance?
I'll second that.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. So I have a first and a second on the amended motion to allow City Attorney Jarman to go forward with the items from the appellate court to change the ordinance on dangerous dogs. All those in favor will have you raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, keep your hands up for a minute. I gotta scroll screens here. All right, motion carries to allow City Attorney Jarman to go forward. Thank you.
What was that vote?
It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 7.
7. I only saw.
I only saw 3 hands.
Yeah, well, I only saw 4. So can
Scroll.
you tell me who are the board members that are voting yes on this? We have
Myself, Tijuana, Elaine, Vanessa, Teresa. Oh, I'm sorry, I counted Tijuana twice because she's on the second screen as well. So that's 4.
I'll be in a minute, okay?
Well, you don't vote, right, Stephanie, except on ties?
Correct.
I don't believe so, not on these.
You have a tie-breaking vote.
Hold on, I can't see who all is here for some reason.
Stephanie, I'm being informed that you can only break the tie if there's a tie. You're the deciding tiebreaker.
Wouldn't there be with 4 and 4? We don't have 9 people here.
Do your yays, do your nays, and then if there's a tiebreaker, that would be your vote.
Yeah, so it's 3 to 4 if I understood you correctly.
I'm going back and forth between screens. Hold on.
Stephanie, it might be easier for you to roll call your votes instead of trying to count the hands.
Yeah, so it's.
I wonder if we could use the poll feature that Zoom has for some of this too. Might be something to look into.
All you have to do is raise your hand officially on the screen that's more, and you can raise hand. And so if you vote that way, then she can go to participants and easily see who has their hand raised.
Okay, we had 4 yays. That was Elaine, Vanessa, Teresa, Tijuana. 3 was Mike, Patrick, and Richard voted no. So that motion did pass. All right. Do we have anything else on this one, Ms. Jarman?
No, did you have comments on it?
I do. I have a few comments that are online.
Okay.
I'm going to read those if you're finished.
Yep.
Okay. From Susie Cunningham, there is a bacteria that can severely harm a person, no matter what the size. Rick, can you explain? I know I get an extra shot for my dog. Susie Cunningham also said the board voted against allowing PDDs to be passed 2 rescues by unanimous vote in October of 2019. Does this matter? Beauties and Beasts, irresponsible owners need to be held more accountable, not allow dogs to be put in these situations. A dog can be deemed dangerous for a minor bite or charging and is not euthanized for being a dog. Judy Hanley, how can these board members not know what the dangerous dog ordinance enough to understand it? How can they not understand how WASP works? This is the exact same discussion we had in 2017. And then someone was also helping me count, so.
Okay, thank you.
That'll be it. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to circle back to staff reports with Lieutenant Hungria since he is back and joined us.
Yes, I am back. Bites by district. For the month of November, in District 1, there were 7. In the month of December, in District 1, there were 7. In District 2, there was 3 in November and 0 in December. In District 3, there was 12 in November, 1 in December. In District 4, there were 3 in November and 5 in December. In District 5, there was 7 in November and 6 in December. And in District 6, there was 5 in November and 3 in December. For the year total in 2020, District 1 had 141, District 2 had 43, District 3 had 116, District 4 had 68, District 5 had 63, and District 6 had 80. Let's see. Do you guys want the potential dangerous dog?
Sorry, can you share again how many District 2 had?
For the year, it's 43.
Thank you.
Okay. And do you guys want the potentially dangerous dogs by district and the deemed dangerous dogs by district for this, for the last 2 months?
Yes, please.
Okay. Potentially dangerous by district. District 1 in the month of November had 1. In the month of December had 2. In District 2, we had 0 in November and 3 in December. In District 3, we had 3 in November, 1 in December. District 4, we had 0 in November and 3 in December. Excuse me. District 5 had 0 in both November and December. District 6 had 0 in November and 3 in December. Dangerous dogs by district. In District 1, both November and December had 0. District 2, in both November and December had 1. District 3, in both November and December had 0. In District 4, you had 1 in November, 0 in December. District 5 had 0 in both November and December. And District 6 had 3 in November and 0 in December. All right, I know some of y'all are writing these down. We also have these available on the Animal Services webpage if you want to go back and review it. Does anybody have any other
link to
questions?
it in the chat.
What was that?
I put a link to it in the chat if anybody wants to look at the totals.
Thanks, Mike. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or on the staff stuff, or had any other, anything? You guys are all wore out from the earlier discussion, I see. All right.
Okay, let me see if we have anything online. No online questions. Thank you very much, sir. All right, the next thing we're going to go to is Richard Ruth board member would like to have a discussion of own catch. There was an attachment that went out today in your packet. I do want to let everyone know that there will be, yes.
I forgot I had one more thing to talk about on my stats.
Oh, okay, we'll circle back to you.
Sorry, Ms. Hartwell had asked me to present stats on postal carrier information at the last meeting. And I was able to reach out to the postal inspector or postmaster, excuse me, for Wichita, Ryan Nopkett. And he told me in 2020 or 2019, or excuse me, fiscal year 2020. So for fiscal year, that's October 1 of 2019 to September 30th of 2020, there was 19 dog attacks on postal employees. This year in fiscal year 2021, they've already had 4. The areas of concentration were the second in Waco Munger office and the one at, or excuse me, the Munger office at 13th and Oliver, the downtown office at second in Waco, and the Chisholm office at Pawnee and Seneca is where they had their majority of their information, or had the most of their attacks and bites on postal carriers. Did that answer your question, Ms. Harwell, from earlier?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm still waiting on some information from Mrs. Bonnie Bunch as it relates to the actual protocol. However, she did share with me the policy. So the policy on what leads up to them deciding to have residents of a particular area have to move their mailbox to the curb or do the postal or use a forwarding, the 3 options before they receive the letter. So she did share with me about that information. And I don't know, Ms. McCurdy, if I should just send that to everyone. I should have sent that before so that you all have that same information. But I think that this board already had that information. It was just news to me because I've not been on here that long, but I'm quite confident that you all probably knew all of that information prior.
I think we knew some of it. I think what Bonnie she's giving you is updated information as well, because I believe that their protocol changed to some degree last year, if I remember correctly. And that was just in a passing discussion that didn't come up before the board. So if you would like to send that out to the board, please, do that. And then we will make sure that everyone has that information. And if we need to put that as a discussion for next meeting, we could certainly do so.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. And thank you so much, Hunger. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The one thing that I did want to show everybody is I did find that postcard that the Postal Service sent out. So I will make copies for you, and we're anticipating the next meeting being in person. So I'll bring copies of it for all of you, as well as I'm going to try to send that out here within the next week, probably at the same time Ms. Harwell sends hers out as well. So, all right. Lieutenant, are you finished?
I promise not to speak unless spoken to.
You sure?
I am positive. I'm
Okay.
gonna drink this Dr. Pepper.
I'm jealous. Thank you. All right, Richard, now we're going to come to you. So This is a new business. This is Richard Ruth. He's a board member. Discussion of owned cats. There was an attachment that went out in your board packet. What I do want to say about this is because we did not give the public the full 7 days there, we cannot be voting on this today. So we'll have a discussion today, and then we'll add it to the agenda for next time if there needs to be anything voting wise. Thank you. Richard, you have the floor.
Okay, before I go in, can you read the motion that was passed on the dangerous dog bit? Because there was some question about whether what was passed is what was requested by Elaine.
Elaine requested that the city attorney German go ahead and forward on the appellate court decisions that needed to be amended into the city ordinance.
Okay, so just the court decisions piece.
Yes, just the court decisions, not anything else.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And I believe that's what we have on record. Let me check with, is it Kester?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, so the ordinance changes that I forwarded on and would like to have some discussion on are basically raising the value of the owned cat, the house cat, and giving them the same protections under the law that dogs currently enjoy and have enjoyed for, at least since the 1800s, if not earlier. This would be that there would be no running at large for owned cats in the city of Wichita. There would be a $10 license required, which could be decreased if a microchip was added. There would be a mandatory spay-neuter on owned cats. There would be a 6-month grace period for compliance of this, and the maintenance permit would be dropped for owned cats, a count of 4 cats, that it would not be required. And the reason why is because, there's both the carrying capacity of Wichita and there's the caring capacity of Wichita. And I think there's a lot of people in Wichita that are capable of responsibly owning cats. And that restriction on 2 is limiting our ability to get cats into good homes. So that's basically what the amendments are. And I would like to also just add that during the TNR subcommittee, there were 87 municipalities were looked at. 70 of those municipalities have some form of licensing on cats, registration or tax. And 51 have restrictions on the running at large. So that is 87% of the municipalities looked at by the TNR subcommittee. Those were from all over the country, have restrictions on running at large. We also looked at 42 Kansas municipalities. 23% of those also have some form of licensing. 19 require that tags be worn all the time. 19 of those 42 require spay neuter, and that would be a fixed by, was it fixed by 5 or fixed by 4?
5.
And 5, thanks. 30 of those 42, again, that's over 70%, have restrictions on running at large. So this, we know that we're up to our eyeballs in cats in Wichita. We know that we have a need to return to some level of sanity in this area. And turning off the supply of cats is a step in that direction. Of course, there's not going to be 100% compliance as there is with most laws, but it will help to reduce some of the issues that we're seeing.
Okay.
So
do we have any other comments? Elaine, yes.
Yeah, I have a question for Lieutenant Hungria. If we add cats to animals that are licensed and they are required to be confined, or what some cities say is on the owner's premises, then what kind of burden does that put onto animal services?
Obviously, it would increase our workload on that without looking at the numbers that our current load is at. But I would assume, and I hate to really assume without looking at the numbers, but you would have to imagine it would at least be double, right? If there's 1 cat for every dog, and we're having to do the same job of looking for the run at large cat, that could definitely would be a lot of calls for service. And the run at large cats may be a little bit harder to figure out where their home is compared to the dogs, which have a tendency to go back to their residence. So it could be a little bit more work. The cats are a little bit more elusive than the dogs. So we might have more time tied up at that as well. I think it would be very hard. If anybody's called for a run at large dog now, due to the staffing levels, it might take some time for us to come out there. If we're now going out there for a cat, and it would definitely lengthen the times for calls of service or in between calls of service.
Is this something the department can handle?
With our current staffing level, we could handle anything, but we wouldn't handle it well. We can make the calls, but it's going to be one of those, it may be a day later that we're coming to look for your run at large cat, and we'll have to go by priority because during different times of the year, there's more, say, attack and bite calls. And I know that's where the citizens expect us to be at, not with the run at large animals being a little bit lower priority.
And then one last question. So if a cat is running at large, does that mean that the department is required to respond to all of those calls if this ordinance passes?
Yeah, if it's in the ordinance, we will. If it's a law, we will respond to it. And we get placed in a queue, and then we'll categorize them from just for numbers, say priority 1 being the highest, priority 5 being the lowest. So if it's a 5, once we get done answering all the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, we'll get to the 5s.
Okay, thank you.
How does this work in regards to feral cats that don't have an owner? I mean, Richard.
It would not be. This is only on owned cats.
So how would you know if, I mean, not everybody puts a collar on their cat. I know sometimes my cat will get out without its harnessed on, and then I have to go around the neighborhood like a crazy person trying to find him. And so how do you know if the cat you're seeing actually belongs to somebody without, like the ear being nicked? Because, that kind of identifies a feral cat that's been fixed. But how do you know if it's a feral or owned cat that's at large? I guess that's kind of my confusion on that one.
There is no running at large of cats. There is a requirement to license, so a license would be provided. And the cat should have the collar and the license on, or there can be, if you're concerned about a license being worn around the neck, then there can be a microchip of the animal.
But if you're calling in a cat that, like my cat's microchipped, for instance, and he got out one time and I couldn't find him, and I got a call from the vet, which was really nice. But if they're going to be responding to a cat at large and say they can't find it or whatever, how do we even know that it's an owned cat and it's not just some wild cat that's been dumped? And where do we return it to, for somebody to take accountability, I guess, is kind of my question. Because cats get dumped all the time, and you don't know if they're wild or dumped or, what the situation is. So they won't have
dogs are also dumped.
Yeah.
And so the problem is still there. And I do not see the Wichita Police Department spending a lot of time running around looking for cats. The point is that we raise the bar on cat ownership and put it on par with the dogs. It's entirely too easy to get a cat and to dump a cat when it's time to move, to go into a place where they don't have cats.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to the owned cat. It's not fair to anyone living in the community that they just continuously go out into the world without having any restriction on getting them back to the proper owner. So that was the purpose.
Do you have any more comments from the board?
So I know years ago on the board, we were talking about prioritizing calls, whether or not they could actually answer the calls. And I know that stray dogs were very considered not even following up on the stray dogs, simply because by the time that they got to them, the dogs were already gone. So just previous conversations on the board.
This is a difficult topic because we do need to increase the perceived value of cats and help owners, follow through with the commitment of owning an animal. At the same time, I'm concerned about the at-large piece and cats, the burden that would place on animal services. This is hard. So I don't know how to kind of marry the two concerns. Number one, being within the workload of animal services and not pushing them past you know, their ability to do their jobs and do it well. And then number two, making sure that owned cats are spayed and neutered, and then also, you know, that people are taking owning a cat seriously and getting them the care that they need, and et cetera. So, yeah.
Jaywalking is illegal mostly because you don't want people walking across the street, not because police stop and give out a lot of tickets for jaywalking. And, you know, this is that level of crime. I mean, yeah, people might call in, but if they don't have time to look into it, they won't look into it. It's not that big a deal. You know, this is really about raising that public perception of the, you know, you need to take care of a cat. And if people don't have any clear signal that they need to take care of a cat, they won't. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and I will tell you from personal experience, if your car is broken into, unless there's a weapon stolen from your car, or your property was found in a stolen vehicle, they're not going to come out and make a report that your car was broken into.
Well, I think it's an excellent idea, Richard. I mean, you know, it creates a certain level of expectation and responsibility. But I do have a question. Stephanie said at the very beginning, and that was there would be no vote since the public was not given 7 days. Was that what I heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is it not also accurate that we weren't given 7 days notice on Jan Jarman's thing, and yet we made a board vote, at least partial on it?
Those went out to you the day that I can tell you what date that those went out to you. Hold on 1 second.
8 p.m., January 12th at 8 p.m., so barely a week.
Yeah.
Say that again, please.
January 12th is when they went out.
At 8 p.m. after this hour.
Okay.
So technically under 7 days. If it was at 8 p.m., it will be 7 days at 8 p.m.
The items that Jan Jarman brought through to us, those were appellate court decisions. We don't make those. I don't see any of us that sit on the appellate court in this meeting today. So those were things that really didn't need to be voted on anyway, since she was going to be taking those forward to the Wichita City Council. These were sent out the first day that I asked for any items on the agenda. I received a message back from Richard saying that he may or may not have something. And then a few days later, I did receive this from Richard and I put it out that day. So those are the items that we're dealing with. This is what is on the table today. If you have an issue with that, I'm sure that Deputy Chief Pinkston would be able to discuss those with you.
I think part of the problem is we're getting called for agenda items and what's on the agenda items literally 1 week before meeting. So if we could have those like 10 days before a meeting, that would be definitely beneficial.
Absolutely. I'll make that note and I'll get those out to you 10 plus days prior to that as well.
That would be
sorry. On this issue with owned cats, I would like to, and I know since we can't vote anyway today, get feedback from my district. So I move that we table this discussion until the next meeting.
I second that motion.
Okay. We have a first and a second to table this into the next meeting. Is there any more discussion? I do have some items from the public that I need to read. Okay. One says, who is going to pay for the policing of cats? The next one says, I know there has been a lot of push towards TNR. Wouldn't that proposal prohibit TNR progress? Next one, who pays for policing of dogs? And the next one says, P.S. It pays for itself by increasing compliance and return to home. So those are all that I'm seeing from the public right now. Any more discussion from the board, Richard?
No, I think without having a vote available to us, then yeah, we can take it back.
Tabling it is really the option.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion to table the discussion of owned cat ordinances until our next meeting.
I believe we already have a first and second of that. We've gone through discussion. I'm getting ready to call for the vote for that. It's okay. It's hard to see everybody and hear everything because we're all on Zoom. So hopefully we'll be back together soon. So I need, we have a first and a second to table our discussion to be able to vote to next time. All those in favor, aye. And you're gonna raise your hand because I'm gonna have to scroll the screen to count you guys. So give me 1 second. All right, that motion passes. All right, the next thing that we have in old business is with Elaine Stephen, and it says update for responsible pet owner pamphlet. And Elaine, I believe that you told me that because of COVID and everything, you haven't been able to get with the city, and so you want to table that until next time.
Yeah, just with the past 2 months, we have no new information at that time, so I'd like to table that until the next meeting.
Excellent, thank you very much. And the last thing on our agenda today in old business is Patrick Atkins with the TNR discussion. Okay, Patrick's screen went black. Did he just go potty?
Sorry about that. I had to.
Okay, I didn't know where you went. I thought maybe you got kicked off or something yourself.
I don't have any further discussion at this time.
Okay, no further discussion on that. Do we have any more issues and updates from our board members?
Question. Are we not doing the end of the year reports from the animal rescues anymore? Like we used to?
We plan to do those at the March meeting because we're anticipating those being in person, and that way that they can all share their numbers, as I believe that all the rescue numbers are up for 2020.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to let them give a report. They can obviously email something in, which a few of them did, but I would rather them be able to give their report in person to us. Do I see any more? Anybody else have anything?
I have.
Did we lose Richard? Oh, there he is. Okay, sorry.
I put up, that's Foxy. Foxy joined our family a year ago. It was a breeder release. Didn't know how to walk upstairs, didn't get off the concrete patio to walk in the grass. And now he cries like a cat whenever I leave the room. And he's
You have a friend for life.
I do, it's a miracle. I wanted to bring up something that was a little confusing to one of my neighbors. And I've talked with one of the officers at Animal Control about it. And that is that I got a call about 9 a.m., I think back in November. It was my neighbor who was in tears. Can you please come help me with this dog? And I said, oh my, I'll be right there. And I walked out. She lives right next door to me. And there was a dog laying on the ground with puncture wounds. And it was wagging its tail. And the dog that had attacked it was the dog that was living in the same house as it. Prior to attacking this dog, the dog had gone to a neighbor's, gotten its snout through the fence and bitten my neighbor's dog, such that it had to go to the vet. Both of these dogs were returned to the owner. And that was the end of it. When I called to find out about what came of it, was told that because there were no witnesses to the dog attack on my neighbor, that there was nothing that they could really do about that. And I was told that, and I asked, well, wouldn't the payment of the vet bill be an admission of guilt? And I was told that that was a legal matter, that they couldn't really comment on that. So this was the second time, at least, that these dogs had gotten out of the house. One time I was chased back into my house by one of them. This is maybe it's on the heels of the Dangerous Dog Act, but it seems like the outcome didn't really satisfy the neighbor because basically nothing was done. The dogs were returned, and these dogs had been to the animal control once before, I think the previous week. So the dogs just went back to the home, and life carries on as usual here in Grandview Heights. So I don't know, Hungry, if you have anything to add to that, or to shed some insight into that. It seems kind of crazy that even though those two dogs lived together, that there was a dog attack, and it caused actually a seizure in the other dog that was laying down. And yet that dog, because it was living in the same house, nothing was done, and it was allowed to go back to the owner. It seems like there was significant damage done to the dog, to two dogs in the case of that attack, and nothing was done.
Richard, I'd have to know what address that is so I could take a look at it. I'm sure if it was reported to us, we'd have that information. Obviously, the owner of the attacking dog and the owner of the dog that was hurt are the same owners, so that might be a determining factor. But again, without looking at all the information from the original report from the animal control officer, if the animal control officer was called,
they were.
Well, if I can get the address, then I'll be able to look at that, and I can provide that at the next meeting.
Okay.
In regards to payment, if the neighbor paid for the other neighbor's injured dog, I mean, that's a part of the civil part of it, and that neighbor should. I know they're upset their dog was injured, but at least the other owner took enough responsibility to pay or pay for the bills on that, because that's usually not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, if you can give me that information, I think you have my email address, but if you don't, it's shungria@wichita.gov.
Mm-hmm.
Send me an email with the address, and I can look into it, and I can give a report to the board in March.
And it was two dogs. It was both the dog that he lived with and the dog and my neighbor's dog that was behind the fence.
Yeah, I just need the address of the dog so I can start to look up and research it.
Okay, I can get that. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Richard. And your dog is very cute, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other updates or issues from our board members? All right, seeing none. Just a few housekeeping items. Our next meeting is March 17th, 2021 at 4 p.m. We are anticipating that meeting being in person. So as long as it allows us to do that, we are planning on doing that. I will be sending everything out 10 days prior. That way everyone will have ample time to review anything. And then also, if you have any agenda items, you can send those to me prior to, and I can send those out in the original thing so everyone would have extra time as well. It is 5:22 and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.